Hi, I'm Kaylee, and these are the books that I read in January. I read a really insane amount of books in January. It got a little bit crazy. I read a whopping 51 books in 31 days. Now, I should say though that 16 of those were books for adults and 35 were books for children. So most of my reading was very easy and, quick, short reads. Before we get into all of those books, I want to make sure that you know that Books for MKs is a charity that donates books to missionary kids. Today's MK shoutout goes to Aletta, who is 15 years old and lives with her family in Mexico. She loves to read nonfiction. If you want to donate to children like Aletta, you can donate to the Books for MKs charity at GoFundMe.com. And don't forget to subscribe and give this video a big thumbs up. So out of the 51 books that I read, 3 of those were fantasy. I read 1 classic. I read 12 nonfiction books. I read 21 children's and middle grade fiction. I read 4 children's nonfiction, and I read 10 children's activity books. So I guess the activity books, you don't really read those. I reviewed them for publishers, and so I count them towards my reading goal because I took the time to review it. But, an activity book isn't really reading. I don't know. Now, one of my goals for 2020 is to read my own books and not accept so many review copies from publishers. I completely failed at that in January. I mean, if I had set out to purposely fail, I could not have failed more spectacularly at that goal. I read 18 of my own books and I read 33 review copies. That is ridiculous. Failure on a monumental scale, but I don't care. I got to read some good books. So I'm going to go through these kind of by category. First, I'm going to tell you about the fantasy and the classics, then we'll get into some of the middle grade stuff, and then I'll tell you about all those 33 review copies that I ended up reading. I read 3 different books from the Earthsea Cycle by Ursula Le Guin. I read Tales from Earthsea, which is a bunch of short stories that adds to the folklore of Earthsea. They range from ancient tales about how the wizarding school at Roke was first founded, to more recent tales that fit in with the timeline of the rest of the series. These are emotional stories with bittersweet endings, and I gave this book 3 stars. I read The Other Wind, which is the last novel in the series. In this one, the king of Havnor must rely on a magical girl to parley with the dragons, and a wandering sorcerer has terrifying nightmares about the dead. It has deep emotional themes and really brilliant writing. It's a perfect ending to this incredible series, and I gave it 4 stars. And I read a short story called The Daughter of Odrin, which is kind of like an epilogue type story to the series. This short story is a tragic tale of a daughter who tries to restore her father who has been cursed into stone. It's a powerful and tragic little story. For my classic, I read Anne of Green Gables by Ellen Montgomery. I have read this dozens of times. I mean, I've been rereading it since I was a girl. Anne is adopted by the Cuthberts at Green Gables, and she has some trouble fitting in with her new life because of her overactive imagination and her fiery temper. I love the entire Anne series, and rereading it for the umpteenth time is just wonderful. I adore everything about Anne, and I gave this book 5 stars. All right, let's speed things up a little bit because I have a lot of books to get through. I've been reading through the Mary Poppins series, and I read Mary Poppins A to Z. Each page showcases a scene from life on Cherry Tree Lane with a lot of words that start with that letter of the alphabet. It's not as good as a real Mary Poppins story, so I only gave it 3 stars. I read Mary Poppins in the House Next Door. A new neighbor moves in next door, and Mary Poppins is the only one that can help the Banks family to deal with the drama. This one has whimsical writing and a very funny plot. And of course, Mary Poppins is practically perfect in every way. I read Mary Poppins in the Kitchen, which is a cookery book with a story. Mary Poppins teaches the Banks children how to cook. It's part story and part recipes, and this is just a sweet little story, sort of a companion novella to the Mary Poppins series. I should warn you though, if you read this, it will make you hungry because they eat so many good things. I'm also reading through the Pippi Longstocking series. I read Pippi Goes to the Circus and then realized that it's actually just an excerpt from one of the original Pippi Longstocking books. It has hilarious illustrations that bring this story to life, and this would be a good way to introduce younger readers to Pippi Longstocking. If they're not quite old enough to read the entire book of Pippi Longstocking, this is just a shorter little excerpt. I also read Pippi's After Christmas Party. Pippi throws a party for all the children in the village, and there are several surprise guests that threaten to disrupt the festivities, but Pippi knows how to deal with intruders. It's delightful fun and beautifully illustrated. I read The Skull of Truth by Bruce Coville. Charlie is cursed to always tell the exact truth, and of course it gets him into trouble. This has lots of humor, and it's not really scary at all. I gave it 3 stars. I read all the books in the Samantha series from the American Girls collection. This was my favorite of the American Girls when I was a little girl, so the nostalgia is very strong. These are sweet, old-fashioned stories, and Samantha was always my favorite character. The stories are interesting with lots of history and fun, and I gave each of them 5 stars. One night I had insomnia, and so I stayed up and I read Danny the Champion of the World by Roald Dahl. This is one of my favorite Roald Dahls, and I've reread it dozens of times. Danny and his father live in an old gypsy caravan, and they have adventures. The reason I love this one so much is that the connection between father and son is just so precious, and I always give it 5 stars. I read the next graphic novel in the Hilda series, which is Hilda and the Mountain King. Hilda has been transformed into a changeling troll, and she looks for the help of the Mountain King to change her back into a human. This has beautiful artwork and an imaginative story, and I gave it 5 stars. The next books that I have to show you are all ones that I received from publishers in exchange for a free and honest review. I read My Perfectly Imperfect Life, or My Imperfectly Perfect? No, My Perfectly Imperfect Life. This is a guided journal that gives writing prompts and little challenges and exercises that you can do to relieve stress and enhance your life and find good in the little things. It has cute illustrations and mindful activities and gentle challenges. I gave this one 5 stars. I read In Tune, Music as a Bridge to Mindfulness. This book teaches the reader how to meditate by focusing on the breath using techniques that are also used by musicians. This is not quite what I expected. The writing is really verbose and repetitive. It could have been a shorter book. It does have some good ideas, but the book is just too long. I only gave it 2 stars. I read The More or Less Definitive Guide to Self-Care. This book gives practical self-care tips and advice, and all the ideas are organized from A to Z. However, heavy profanity and political posturing ruined my enjoyment of this book. There are some good ideas for self-care, but I only gave it 2 stars. I read Dot Journaling, A Practical Guide. This book is perfect for anyone who is interested in the bullet journal method and they're just not quite sure where to start. I love how organized this book is. I really like the author's writing style. It's very relatable. And I appreciated the many examples and beautiful photos. I gave this 4 stars. I read the Men's Prayer Journal. This is a simple journal that has lots of room for writing in thoughts or prayers, and there is a scripture verse at the bottom of each page. There are no journal prompts or anything, just plain pages with a verse at the bottom. I think it's perfect in its simplicity, and I gave this one to my dad as a gift, and I gave it 5 stars. I read the Popcorn Prayer Journal. Each page has a place for writing just a few short lines of prayer or thought. There are journal prompts and topics to pray for each day. It has a lovely pastel design. It's really inspiring and easy to use, and I gave this book 5 stars. I read The Path to Positivity. This book gives clear and practical steps for changing your mindset and harnessing your thoughts, and accepting your emotions so you can live a better life. There's a really intelligent writing style that I liked, and it breaks down complex ideas into small, manageable pieces. It's really encouraging and accessible, and I gave it 4 stars. I read The Loneliness Companion, a practical guide for improving your self-esteem and finding comfort in yourself. This book gives practical advice for connecting with others and finding fulfilling relationships. It's full of encouraging affirmations and helpful tips. It has a very relatable writing style and excellent advice. Reading this, I actually realized that I'm not really as lonely as I thought. I have some really good, rewarding relationships in my life, but I gave this book 5 stars. I read Essential Chakra Yoga, poses to balance, heal, and energize the body and mind. This book teaches you how to use yoga to balance the energy in your body. It has clear instructions with simple drawings that illustrate each pose. It's a positive and calming approach to gentle yoga. I gave this 5 stars. I read Bento for Beginners. This recipe book has all the instructions you need to start using bento boxes for work or school lunches. It has good instructions and advice and a lot of different recipes to choose from. There's just so many different options for meals, and I've been trying this out and really loving it. I gave it 5 stars. I read Breaking Through: How Female Athletes Shattered Stereotypes in the Roaring '20s. Women and girls in the 1920s pushed for more sports education and for recognition in professional competitions. They broke barriers in sports and they set new world records. I really love the stories of these courageous women, the quotes from famous athletes of that era, and the beautiful photographs full of action and movement. I gave this 5 stars. I read Turn It Up, a pitch-perfect history of music that rocked the world. This book gives an overview of the history of music and how different styles have developed over time. With paintings and photographs that are showcased in a colorful design, this book is sure to capture the attention of anyone interested in music. I gave it 5 stars. I read How to Raise a Reader. This gives advice on how to encourage children and teens to read more. And it has lists of recommended books. I did not like the pretentious writing style, and they were critical of many books that I loved as a child. They just have a lot of narrow opinions, and there's some political posturing in there. I was very disappointed, and I only gave it 2 stars. I read 2 books from the National Geographic readers. I read Susan B. Anthony and Harriet Tubman. Susan B. Anthony worked tirelessly to secure votes and liberty for women in the United States. And Harriet Tubman was born as a slave and escaped to freedom, and she worked tirelessly to free other slaves through the Underground Railroad, and she even served as a spy during the American Civil War. I really love this simple writing style that's easy for young readers to understand. And the colorful design and the old photos really bring the history to life. I gave both of these 5 stars. I read Goddess Power, which is a kid's retelling of the tales of Greek goddesses that are simplified for children. There are beautiful illustrations of each of the goddesses and excellent dramatic writing. I gave this 4 stars. I read 6 books from the I Like Stickers series. I read Seasons, Trucks, Space, Letters, Colors, and Pirates. Each book has hundreds of colorful stickers with fun designs and glossy end papers that you can use like a little background scene to put the stickers on. The stickers are reusable and very sturdy, and they don't lose their stickiness over time. I gave each of these activity books 5 stars. I also reviewed Pocket Flyer's Airplane book. This book has 69 colorful airplane designs with clear instructions on how to fold each plane. I was really amazed at the variety of the design and how detailed and colorful the artwork is. I gave this book 5 stars. I read Awesome Brain Games for Kids. This is broken into sections for science, technology, engineering, art, and math. And it gives challenges and puzzles and secret codes and activities. It's engaging and fun with lots of creative and colorful designs. I gave this book 5 stars. And I read Logic Puzzles for Clever Kids. These are fun brain games for ages 4 and up. This book has very simple puzzles and activities to help a young child learn to put things in order or to compare different items and choose the next step. It has bright and colorful designs and really fun puzzles. I gave this 5 stars. I read the fascinating animal book for kids with 500 wild facts. This is divided into chapters for mammals and insects and fish and reptiles and amphibians and birds. This book gives amazing facts and information about each animal. It has vibrant photographs that really sparked the reader's curiosity, and I gave it 5 stars. I read My Big Wimmel book, A Day at the Zoo. This is an entertaining search and find book with a beautiful chaos of different people and animals at the zoo. This is perfect for little readers, and I gave it 5 stars. I read We Love Babies. This adorable picture book features dozens of baby animals, from ones that we know like an elephant or a giraffe, all the way to very strange species like the long-eared jerboa or the serval. The photographs of these cute little babies are just so adorable and sweet, and I gave this book 5 stars. And I read a picture book series by Nicholas Oldman, including Making the Moose Out of Life, Walk on the Wild Side, Up the Creek, The Busy Beaver, and The Big Bear Hug. These picture books are adorable with really hilarious plot lines and bright illustrations. I gave each of these 5 stars. I've been reading these with my niece and she loves them. And those are all the books that I read and reviewed in January. Please leave me a comment down below and let me know what was some of the best reading that you did in January. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and remember, the right book in the right hands at the right time can change the world.